noted. I would like to remind everyone that this is the meeting of the GO team. Only members of the team may participate in the discussion. Any members of the public present here are here to quietly observe. For members of the GO team, please identify yourself when you speak. I am pleased to call this meeting of John Lewis Invictus Academy GO team to order at 5:17. Our first order of business is to call roll. The secretary will now take the roll.
All right, good evening, everyone. Please respond present when your name is called. Miss Donna Davis.
Present.
Miss Jasmine Henderson. Tasha Giles.
Present.
Miss Rosalind Triplett.
Present.
Miss Franklin, Stanell Franklin. Ms. Haddock is present. Mr. Cogdell.
Present.
Bree McClendon.
Present.
Ms. Tanya Ellis.
Present.
Okay. We have a Zoom user on the line. I don't know who. Could you please identify yourself? I'm not sure who's on the call, but let me go with 1, 2. We do have a quorum, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Our first order of business is to approve the agenda. This was provided to you and copies are here. Are there any changes to the agenda?
No.
May I have a motion to approve the agenda?
I approve.
Approve.
Second?
Second.
All in favor,
Second.
please. All in favor, please say A, so the secretary can record your vote.
Aye.
A.
All opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? Please say abstain. We will review the minutes meetings from our last meeting. The minutes have been provided to you. Are there any corrections?
None noted.
May I have a motion to approve the previous meeting minutes?
Approve.
A second?
Second.
All in favor? Say aye.
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 All opposed, please say nay. Any abstentions? Please say abstain. Okay, so we're going to move on to the action item. Our first action item is the action items to appoint parent members, and those members would be Ms. Henderson and Ms. Giles. Is it Giles or Giles?
It's Giles.
Giles. Okay, thank you. Giles. So is Ms. Henderson present?
And no, ma'am, she was not present.
So Ms. Giles, you have been appointed as one of the parent members to be a member of the GO team. And now
Yes.
that you, okay, and now that you're here, we're going to go ahead and vote for Ms. Giles. Is that correct, Ms. Davis? Because I don't think we voted for her. Okay, cool. Okay.
Yes. Yes. And if Ms. Giles, if you wanted just to tell everyone a little bit just about yourself.
Yes. Hello, everyone. Let me turn my video on. I'm sorry. I'm in the process of trying to cook at the same time. Hello, everybody. My name is Miss Giles. I am Symphony Giles' mother. She held all A's last year, and this year we're doing the same thing as well. I participate in all of school activities when my schedule allows me to, and I love to be a part of everything that's going on as a parent, and also to see from the outside looking in on what a lot of parents have complications, or they say some what they feel like should happen. And also I do clarify stuff on parents have when they don't understand what's going on. I kind of explain it to them on their end so they could understand, what's all going on with the school, especially when the transportation kind of was going on. They was fussing like, what's going on with the All-Stars? And I was able to break it down to them to say, hey, X, Y, and Z. So basically that's me. I'm from New Jersey. I am a holistic practitioner. So yeah, that's basically it. I'm a mom of 4 girls.
Awesome. So now, thank you, Ms. Giles, for your information is being here at John Lewis with the Go Team. So with that being said, we're going to go ahead and move forward with the voting. So now that we have Ms. Giles, and I guess once Ms. Henderson we'll just come back and we'll just do the same for Ms. Henderson. Okay, so now all of those, may I have a motion to approve Ms. Giles as being one of the appointed parent member?
Motion
I have
to
a motion.
approve.
Okay,
I
second.
second it.
All in favor, say
Aye.
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 All opposed, nay. Any abstentions, please say abstain. All right, welcome, Ms. Giles. You are now an official member of the Go Team of John Lewis.
Welcome.
Thank you, you guys. Thank you.
Now we're going to move on with our next action item. It's going to be the ranking strategic plan priorities.
Yes. Thank you so much, Ms. Triplett. Good evening, everybody. We're so excited to welcome Ms. Giles to our team. So here are just some highlights from our agenda. We're going to take a look at our continuous improvement plan again. It is time for that 45-day check-in, so I'm going to provide the team with some updates. And then, as Ms. Triplett said, as a team, we have to rank our priorities in preparation for budget season coming up. And then I have my principals report and then a few updates. Next slide, please. Okay, so if you see the timeline for Go Teams, you see we are at number 5. We are here. So today, one of our main actions is to make sure that we take a look at our strategic plan and vote on how they are ranked. Our priorities are ranked in preparation for the budget discussions of 24-25. Next slide, please. Okay, now we're gonna go a little bit into our continuous improvement plan. Okay, so here is our SMART goals from our continuous improvement plan. So if you see here on the slide, I'm not gonna go through it in through every single one of them. I've done it before. But basically you can see that it's broken into literacy, numeracy, and whole child and intervention. And so basically what we did was we do not just have generic goals for our content areas. We took the data and how our scholars performed in the Georgia Milestones last year to come up with our goals for this year. So all in all, it's either a plus or minus 3 to 5 percentage point gain, with the exception of some areas. And that's how we came up with our goals for this year. So you see for literacy, we have 6th grade, 7th grade, and 8th grade ELA. We have our social studies goal under the literacy bucket. And then for numeracy, we have 6th grade math, 7th grade math, 8th grade math, and then we have science that is in that column. And then to the far right, we have our whole child and intervention. So we are definitely looking at attendance this year. And so we are monitoring our CCRPI attendance, which is the percentage of students who are absent fewer than 10% of enrolled days. And so we want to increase that by 5 percentage points. And then for discipline, we want to decrease the amount of OSS incidents that we have as a school. And we are making some good progress with that. And then how are we measuring that? At the bottom, basically, we're using our MAP growth from fall, winter, and spring. We've already administered during the fall. We're going to administer the MAP assessment coming up again in the winter. And then again in the spring, our scholars take formative and summative assessments, and we do focus walks as well. Next slide, please. Okay, so here are our specific short-term action plan steps. So for what are we doing as a school for literacy and numeracy? We are monitoring the implementation of collaborative planning meetings. So each week, our administrators go in and there is a rubric that we use to pretty much monitor the effectiveness of those planning meetings. And then we're also monitoring the implementation of targeted instruction through small groups. And we're doing this through intervention. And so our scholars are either assigned to Systems 44, Read 180, and Math 180. And our scholars who have tested out of the program are engaged in enrichment activities, but they're not on here. I just wanted to let you know we are definitely doing something for our distinguished, proficient and distinguished scholars. And then we are also, as an admin team, conducting weekly classroom observations. And here we are looking for evidence of what is the coaching that our instructional coaches and administrators are providing to our teachers. And then for whole child intervention, we have a WCI team that consists of our counselor, social worker, MTSS specialists, behavior specialists. It's just a whole group of people who are monitoring and helping our scholars with attendance, behavior, and grades. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is just a slide just that is saying that it is the point for us to do a check-in. And so here are some questions to consider as I dig into a little data about where we are as far as our progress. Based on our year-long continuous improvement plan, what are the actions that the school has already completed? What data supports the completion of an action step and success criteria, both implementation and student achievement? And I'm going to address that on the slides that follow. Next slide. Okay, so now we're going to dig into a little data. Okay, so I just wanted to ground everyone, just so you know, this is our JLIA observation form. So it triangulates our data. And this is the form that admin uses, our instructional coaches use. And so basically, only certain people have access to the data so that we make sure that it's valid data. And we utilize this data when we have our monthly SIT meetings. And this is when our Godot partners and Metro RESA come in, and we have to explain each month based off the data from the observations where we are in our progress towards achieving our goals in the SIP. Next slide for me, please. So you can see from this slide, these are the 3 observations that we are doing. Even though we are in classrooms and PLCs weekly, we are capturing this data bi-weekly. So we're in there weekly, but we're actually putting it into this form every 2 weeks. So you can see here that we have done, since we started this September 1st, there have been 167 observations done, and you can see that 52% of them have been that tier 1 intervention observations where we're looking for that targeted small group. Our instructional awareness walk, this is where our administrators go in classrooms and observe teachers looking at culture and instructional practices. And then you see that collaborative planning bucket, which is at 12%. And this is only because we're looking at we're looking at ELA and we're looking at math PLC. So that's why you don't see it as much, but it's still happening each week because we have those checkpoints. We have our Godot and our Metro RESA partners that I meet with every single week. So we're definitely in line with what we're supposed to be doing. Next slide, please. Okay, and this is just to give you all some context. So on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, as far as intervention, so Tuesdays and Wednesdays are supposed to be our small group days, and then you have platform days. So this kind of gives you just kind of a big picture. You see, we have 87 responses, and our instructional coaches are charged with doing these observations again bi-weekly. This is when they do them bi-weekly, so you can kind of see kind of the layout of the observation data that is here. Next slide, please. Okay, so now we're getting into the gist of things. Okay, so at the top, you can see these are our goals, right? We want 70% of students to meet their targeted segment goal in Read 180. So Read 180 and Systems 44 are our intervention programs for literacy. And then we want 70% of students to meet their phonics series goal in System 44. And then we want 80% of teachers to implement targeted instruction, small group instruction at an evident level according to the intervention look for rubric data. This is small groups. So if you look at that first table, you can see that we are definitely tracking our progress. And so you see the data from the school year 22, and you see the data from school year 23. And so we definitely want to see if we are progressing. The whole goal of intervention is we do not want all of our scholars to be in intervention, right? So when they come to us in the fall, they take the MAP assessment, and then we utilize their scores from the MAP assessment to place them in intervention if they need intervention, which is support, or enrichment if they tested out of it. So if we see from August 1st to September 30th, compared from last year we had 470 scholars who started in Math 180, but this year we had 334. And then last year for Read 180, we had 144 scholars starting Read 180, but this year we had more. We had 252 that started in Read 180. But look at Systems 44. Last year we had 321 students starting Systems 44. And then this year we had 82. So what just to kind of break it down for you all, Systems 44 is that phonics level of support. And I like to liken it to elementary school. So we want to move our scholars out of Systems 44 because that means that they have grown, which is good, which means that we've done, we still have a lot of work to do, but we see growth. So we want the bulk of our scholars to be in Read 180 or Math 180, just to kind of give you guys an idea. And then if you're looking at middle table, HMH inventories. So they took the inventory, they take the inventory 3 times a year. So they've taken it once, and that's what you see. So that's the data from the September 5th administration. And then when you look at the bottom, this is really what we're looking for. 80% of teachers to implement targeted instruction at an evident level by term, right? So by term. So we see, we do have some work to do, but we see that we have 18.2% of our teachers who are scoring exemplary. This is when we coming in as a team, we're doing observations, we're looking at that rubric, and they have evidence of the indicators of exemplary. Then we have 18.2% of our teachers who are implementing small group at a proficient level. And then this was the beginning. Then we see 36.4% were emerging and 27% were not evident. And again, this was when we first started. So it's by term. So it'll happen again. So this will be updated again once we get to December. Next slide. Okay.
I'm sorry, I had a question on the last slide. Now, my question on these testing, due to the fact that I do know each child learn different and they test totally different, is there a way to figure out what's the best way for children to test, and also what's the best way for children to learn to intake the information that they're given? Because I don't want this, the numbers to be based on introvert children when, the school might be like a split of both. So the numbers might be off, because from what I was told from my daughter who goes to the school, she actually tests better and do better when she's listening to music. So she's more of a extrovert. I'm sorry if I'm saying the word wrong. On learning. Okay. So is this based on more kids who's better with reading and focusing on like better testers, because some people are better testers than others, and some kids that's extremely smart, they're not, like, they hate testing due to the fact that they get nervous or just get really frustrated with testing. So is this basically based on like the kids that do great at testing, or overall the school year on what their grade is throughout the whole school year?
Those are good questions. So this is based on all of our scholars. So all of our scholars, there are certain tests throughout the year that aren't optional. As a school, you know, we're held accountable, and we have to provide progress of whether or not our instruction is moving our scholars in the right direction. So basically, our scholars being enrolled in this intervention program was dependent upon how they scored on the MAP assessment. And that was in August when they took the first section of it. So it applies to, so all of the students that showed on that test, Ms. Giles, that they needed some additional support in either math or reading, are doing this intervention program. And so the intervention takes place in their ELA and their math classes. So in 6th and 7th grade, it's taking place during the first 20 minutes of class. And basically what that means is they're on the platform. And just like you say, it is tailored to what the scholars need. It is tailored to what they exactly need. So all the scholars they take, I'll say, it's kind of like a placement test in the beginning, so that the computer system will know what specific skills the scholar needs to work on. In addition to that, on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, the teachers are strategically pulling students to a small group to work on additional skills that they need to work on. So this is all tailored to what the scholars need based off what they have shown that they need support in, so that they can access grade level content. And I did hear you say, as far as your daughter liking to listen to music, that's up to the teacher. You know, whether, you know, she allows her, you know, students to do that, but you know, that's just up to the teacher as far as that is concerned. But yes, ma'am, there's certain assessments like we cannot opt out of, but once again, intervention is support. This is strictly support. It's not punitive,
Okay.
it's support.
All right, so basically, I guess let me rephrase my statement so it could be more clear. So you know how you said this is basically support system, because I do know each child, because I'm sorry, this is a little bit extra. I did work in a child care for like a year and a half, dealing with younger children all the way up to 12-year-olds. And I did learn that each child learned different. And because each child learned different, they absorb information differently. And because if you guys are testing the children one way, it's actually, you know, obsoleting or kicking out the other children that could test or learn a different method or different way, so they be able to achieve or accomplish the testing properly. So let's say if you have children that's better with, if you talk to them and you break it down to them, you know, all the way down to A, B, and C, test that way. And if you could be able to give them the information that way, compared to children where if they sit down and read it themselves, they could understand how to do it because they could read it. And then you have some kids that if you just give an example, they could understand from the example. So are you, with this testing or with this support, are we actually more so engaging with all levels and different types of learning? So people who do need you to break it down all the way to the bare minimum, to the kids who just need you to explain, and to the kids that just need to read. Because if it's just targeting one group of kids, that means you're actually losing more percentage of children than what you're gaining.
So yes, ma'am, thank you for clarifying. So there are a couple things in that. So what you're talking about is differentiation. And so yes, we do differentiate for our scholars based off if they're kinesthetic, hands-on, auditory. Yes, ma'am. So we do that. We do that not only at intervention, but even like as the teacher is teaching. And this also shows up in assignments and tasks that the teachers plan. So some kids, they may have a choice board, and just as you said, they may prefer to do, you know, a presentation, a PowerPoint presentation over a written assignment. but all that is differentiation. So yes, ma'am, we do that.
Okay, so are these scores based on all of that or just one way of learning?
No, ma'am. So when they're working with their intervention teacher, they are supporting the children with what they need. So basically, just like you said, when they're in that small group and they're working one-on-one with the teacher, that's when they're working with the scholars based off their specific need.
Kudos, awesome, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so here, this gives us a little bit more data of what we're doing week by week. So you see here, you see like week 1 and then you see week 2 by week. So just like earlier when I was saying that even though we're in classes every week, it's that by week that we're getting that data point. So you can see that. And if you come down to week 6, October 16th through 20th, that was the last week that we got our observations, and we are moving in the right direction. So this is, our goal is 80% of teachers to implement the targeted instruction at an evident or proficient level, okay? So if we're looking at this data, we can see that we're moving out of the not evident. We have 38% of our teachers who are emergent. We have 50% of our teachers who are proficient, and we have 5% of our teachers who are exemplary. And so that 55% that is of teachers that are proficient and exemplary, what we're doing is we're creating a database of videos of, you know, them in practice to help coach our other teachers as well. And our teachers that aren't showing this progress, they are receiving coaching from Dr. Harrell. And so if you go down to the next chart, you see 70% of students will meet their targeted phonics series goal and Systems 44. And what this means, y'all, is that the students are covering 7 topics per 9 weeks. 7 topics per 9 weeks. And so we see that we have some areas of growth here. However, we do have scholars that are making improvement, right? So for 6th grade, and in parentheses, you'll see the number of students that are assigned. So phonics, again, this is our Systems 44. This is the least amount of students that are assigned to this platform. So out of 49 students, we have 6, which is 12%, that have met their goal. And then in 7th grade, we don't have any out of 18. And then in 8th grade, we have 3 out of 15, which equates to 20%. So we are seeing progress, but once again, we started this September 1st. We are continuing on with this through December, so we still have a little ways to go. Next slide, please. Okay, and this is about Read 180. So we can see here for Read 180 segments, what percentage of students are at least completing one targeted segment. We have 40 out of 223 students, which equates to 17.9%. Next slide, please. Okay, so now we want to go into our collaborative planning. So this is when our, as administrators, we go in and we observe using, once again, our rubric. So when we go in, what we're seeing is our PLC leads. They are leading these planning meetings at an operational level, which is where we want to be. So 100%, and we see the number of responses over to the left out of 20 responses. Next slide, please. And then this one is based off standards-based instructional planning and standards analysis. So we see 90%, we are operational. So what this equates to is when teachers are in the PLCs, are they utilizing the curriculum and the standards that best support, and the standards to best support our scholars? In other words, they're not using, not research-based strategies or anything like that. So 90%, that is well above our 80% mark, which is a good job. So we're definitely meeting this mark. Next slide. And then this one is as far as lesson plans, instructional planning. So lesson plans are due each Friday to instructional coaches by 9 a.m. And then the instructional coaches provide feedback to our teachers on an as-needed basis. So based off of that, so they're in PLCs, and then they have to submit the lesson plans, and then they get feedback from the instructional coaches. And then as administrators, we go in the classroom and we are observing the teachers. So 90% of our teachers are scoring operational, which is great because our goal is 80%. So we are hitting above the mark, but we still see we have 10% of our teachers that are emerging. And once again, these teachers are receiving coaching from instructional coaches. to support them in their growth. Next slide, please. So data analysis. So we see here, this is our LIFT team. This is the area of growth. For us, we see that we only have 75% of our teachers who are implementing the data analysis and the weekly data meeting. So this is, we were doing it bi-weekly, but the district this year is wanting for it to happen every week. And so our teachers have engaged in training for it. And so we are definitely implementing this with fidelity, but we have some work to do. Actually on Thursday, we have some team members from the district that are coming in to observe one of our PLCs. And so they will continue to come in and observe and see the things that we have going on and then support us in the process. Next slide, please. So here are some results from our instructional awareness walkthrough. So I just pulled a couple questions from the rubric that we're using each week. This was a glow for us. Our teachers are using curriculum documents and artifacts that are aligned to the intended rigor of the standards. They have student work exemplars, they have lesson plans. So we have 88.3% of our teachers who are proficient at this level. So when we go in as administrators and we pull up lesson plans, this is what we're seeing. So our teachers are doing a great job at this. Next slide, please. So I have an asterisk beside this one because this one and the one that's following are our areas of opportunity. So we had a GSAP, which is when the Godot, our Georgia Department of Education partners came in September, and they did pretty much an instructional walkthrough throughout the building. They selected teachers, random classrooms to go and observe what was happening in those classrooms. They interviewed me, they interviewed the admin team, counselors, teachers, to kind of get an overall view of what was going in the building and all aspects of the building. So this was something that was also lifted in that walkthrough, is that we need to support or make sure we do have some bright spots, because you see we're at 66.7%. But we want to be at 80%. So in some of our classrooms, our teachers they do not have the learning targets posted on the board, and they're not verbalizing those learning targets throughout the lesson. And so this is, again, an area, this is like we differentiate for our scholars with work, we differentiate professional learning for our teachers as well. So those teachers who aren't quite meeting the mark are getting coaching from the instructional coaches on this. Next slide, please. And then this was another one. The instructor establishes and communicates success criteria. Is it posted and is it verbalized so students understand how to master the lesson? So what this looks like is I go into a teacher's classroom and I see that they have on the board, today we are doing XYZ. I'll know that I have it when I can do XYZ. And then we go around and we talk to some students. And if the students can articulate what is on the board or what they're doing, then we know that the instructor has and they have internalized it. If they cannot, then we know we have work to do. So we see we're at 78.3%. We're almost at the 80% mark. We are making some gains. So I am confident that we're gonna meet this soon, but we're not quite there yet. Next slide for me. Okay, so now as a result of all of that we're doing, how are our students performing overall? So you see, our goal is for 70% of students to score 70% or above on these biweekly common formative assessment. And then we're also monitoring our subgroups, right? So we're monitoring our SWD stands for students with disability. And then ELL are English language learners, right? So these are important subgroups that we have in our group, in our school. So you can see it's for 6th grade, 7th grade, and 8th grade ELA. If we just look at that last column, you can see, if you go down to the second, fourth, you can see that 34% of our 6th grade students scored a 70% or above on this particular assessment. And remember, 6th grade and 7th grade is our humanities, which is a combination of ELA and social studies. We didn't have any of our SWD subgroup to score 70% or above, but we did have 1% of our ELL subgroup that did. And then when you go down to 7th grade ELA, we do have some data that is forthcoming, but we see from the September 19th through 29th, assessment, that overall master, we had 12% of our 7th grade scholars that scored a 70% or above, but we didn't have any in the SWD subgroup. Next slide, please. And I apologize that, let me pull up my slide so I can, this data that's at the bottom. Give me a moment. Okay, so we are on, this is 6th grade math. Okay, cool beans, yes. So if we look at the 6th grade math, we see some data here. If you look in that last column, you see that we had 43% of our 6th grade scholars that scored 70% and above, and this is Amplify, right? So Amplify is our curriculum that we're using. We did have a greater percentage of our SWD subgroup. 16% scored a 70 or above, and that is great. But look at our ELL subgroup. 38% of our ELL scholars scored 70 or above on this particular formative assessment. And then if you go down to 7th grade, we see 56% overall scored 70% or above. We had 33% of our SWD subgroup that scored 33% and above. And then 52% of our ELL subgroup scored a 70% or above on this formative assessment. And once again, this is Amplified. And then I know it's cut off, but I have it in front of me. And then for 8th grade, we have 35% of our overall scholars scored 70% or above. 13% score of the SWD subgroup scored 70 and above, and then 27% of our ELL. So we are definitely seeing some gains in the right direction with our math. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so this is science, team. This is science. So for science, we can see that we have some areas of growth, but our babies are still performing. Okay, so overall for 6th grade, 30% of our scholars scored a 70% or above. 27% of our SWD subgroup scored 70 above, and 41% of our ELL subgroup scored 70% on that formative assessment. And then when you go down to for science, I'm not sure why we're missing some data right here, but I see overall Ms. Paldo has captured that 83% of our students, that is amazing. 83% of our students scored a 70% and above on the Unit 2 assessment. And we see high school biology we're missing, but if we go over to, and this is simply because she's doing the summative assessments and not the formative, but we see that if we go back to September 1st through 14th, 60% of the scholars scored a 70 above, and we see 57% of our ELL group score a 70% and above. Okay, next slide for me, please. Okay, and then for social studies, remember social studies is a combination in 6th and 7th grade, but the district does not require us to do those common formative assessments, but for 8th grade social studies, we do. And so if you look at that last column, our social studies data is extremely low. We're going to lift that. And then Mrs. Kennedy also said that all students were not tested. So there was some issues with the platform, where there was some questions in this platform, and then there was some constructive response questions in another. So it kind of, the data was, is kind of skewed. And so you could see that, but once it gets all together and graded, it should increase. But right now we only have 4% of our scholars that scored a 70% or above on this particular assessment. Okay. Now we'll get into our whole child and intervention. So once again, we are monitoring our CCRPI attendance. I am happy to report that we have been above our goal of 48.1% all year long. We are currently, as of 10/20, at 54.7%. And this is lower than we were. We were almost at 60%. But we just overall, just in true transparency, we've had some tribunals, we've had some situations at the school where we just had to, some kids, you know, they need to be in a different setting. And so that has impacted our attendance, but we still have our attendance plan and we're working on increasing this number as well. Next slide, please. And then here is our OSS, right? So you can see I am just extremely proud to note this, family, because what you can see is in that third column, you can see the OSS days from last year. And then versus that first column, the number of OSS days from this year. And so our goal is in the center. And so we want to decrease the number of OSS days by 10% from last year. So you can see that last year we had 339 days, but this year we only had 241 days. So we made our goal. We did not suspend more than 288 days. And then last year it was 262, but this year for September, we landed at 216 total OSS days. And then if you look at last year, for the month of October, we suspended, there were 342 out of school suspension days. And this year we are at 146 and we're almost at the end of the month. So I can definitely attribute this to, this is a whole school effort. This is attributed to us being restorative, not always going to suspension as a first method, utilizing our counselors, our administrators, our teachers. We are having a soft launch of our PBIS incentive program called the JLIA Way. We have a monthly celebration where if scholars are not suspended and they wear their uniforms, well, they can earn a prize to do something. And this month is called the Fantastic Soiree. It's happening on Halloween. And so we do have about 200 scholars who have earned that incentive. So there are a lot of things that are contributing to this, but overall it's teamwork and just an overall change in our culture of our school. Any questions so far? I've said a lot. Okay, next slide for me. So what are next steps for us? Okay, so tutorial will begin on November the 6th. Mrs. Turner sent out an email to staff, and this is for all content areas. So this is what we are doing to get better. Leverage leadership. So leverage leadership, I have been myself, the coaches, the admin team have been engaging in a lot of professional development with leverage leadership. On yesterday, I participated in an observation and coaching training. And then on last Saturday, we participated in a culture training. So we are increasing our toolbox as an admin team to do different things to help our culture and increase our academic achievement. And we're definitely seeing gains in that area. We are doing targeted small group instruction. We're getting better with that. We're doing the intervention in our ELA, humanities, and math classes. So our scholars are being taught by content experts, and we're doing those weekly data meetings. Next slide for me, please. All right, team. So now it is time to discuss, what do you notice? What did you notice about the data? What are your wonderings? And what additional questions do you have?
Hey there. So with the with the suspension, those are the number of days that students are spending outside of classroom. Is that what that's supposed to capture?
Yes.
And it's what's the average length of time that suspension lasts for? Is it 5 days, 7 days?
No, it depends. So we follow the progressive discipline handbook provided by Atlanta Public Schools. So they have it broken down with the elementary level and then the secondary level. So it just depends on the offense and what it entails. Right there, we're only capturing the out of school suspension, but you do have other alternatives to suspension that we are utilizing as well, which could be it could be a mediation with the counselor. It could be detention. So that's just capturing the out of school suspension days that we assign. And again, so I mean, some of the things that we're seeing the most, fights, insubordination. Like I said, we just had some tribunal situations. So these are those situations, like automatic in the student handbook code of conduct, automatically 10 days. And so that a couple of those recently happened, like right before the fall break. For students, we had 3 of those, and all 3 of those students were placed in the alternative setting. So if you think about it, out of those days that I just showed you, the 146, 30 of those days were for those 3 students alone. And once again, it's certain behaviors, it's automatic a tribunal situation where they have to go before the hearing. But I can say, Mr. Cox, that I know you've been with us a couple years, that it's definitely better better now than in previous years. And we're doing everything we can to continue to change the culture here at John Lewis.
I'm just curious. Like, I remember seeing the numbers last year. Do we still have those numbers available, or is there a way that we might be able to see that, like to track how we're doing from year to year?
Yes, it was just shown. Can you go back to that slide, Ms. Cabell?
I apologize. I'm going in and out the house over here.
Oh, it's
Just
okay.
get home.
So on this slide, can you see this slide?
Yes.
Okay, so here on this slide, yes, that's exactly what we're doing year to year. We are tracking. So basically, if you see the difference, the change, like we're down 343 OSS days this year so far compared to last year. So last year, this time we had a total of 600 days that we had suspended. But this year we're down 343 of those days. So we are suspending less. That's what this means. We are suspending less. We are doing alternatives to suspension. We are doing restorative practices. We are doing mediations. So when our scholars have something going on, we're telling them, hey, tell an adult, right? So we can get y'all together, talk to a counselor, my SEL coach, somebody to get down to the root of the problem. So all of that, we have our WCI team who meets every week. And so once again, we're pouring more into our scholars, and our scholars are really, they're letting us know when things are happening, and it makes a tremendous difference.
That is a significant number. That's really great.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Yes.
With what you just said, is it how do the scholars actually participate or either have the opportunity to go to discuss it with a staff member, or do they know who to go to if they have those type of questions or concern of, you know, what things is going on with them, or just a conflict that's going on within the school, or them and the student, or them as a teacher? Like, is there different type of ways for them to figure out who to go to discuss, you know, problems before they get suspended?
Yes, absolutely. That's a good question. So yes, so one of the things that we did coming into the school year, we spent like the first week and a half just going over routines, procedures, what to do, right? And then, of course, our teachers telling our scholars, like, listen, if something's going on, you need to let us know. Something else that we ask our teachers to do is stand at their doors in the morning, right? Just standing at your door first thing in the morning, you can assess, you know, how a scholar is doing. If a scholar is normally in a happy mood and they're in a sad mood, or if you see they're mad, that's the time as a teacher, you know what, let me pull Johnny to the side real quick and say, hey, Johnny, what's going on with you? You know, and then sometimes, you know, things start on the bus. And then when they get off the bus, they come here like, hey, I had an argument with such and such. So yes, ma'am. And then in addition to that, our APs, they have what you call town hall meetings, monthly town hall meetings, where they go over the expectations. They tell the students, like, we're always here to support. I tell my team, like, you have to stay visible, right? We have to be visible. In the hallway, they're in the cafeteria. Everyone has duty here at the school, from me on down. Everyone has duty. So yes, ma'am, like, there's always somebody, and we tell them all the time, you know, tell somebody if something is going. And I can honestly attest that they are doing that. Of course, you have some situations that happen, Ms. Giles, you know, that are just gonna happen. But outside of that, if something is going on, our scholars want to do better. And so we're really seeing the evidence that it is working in some capacity.
Oh, that's awesome. Another question, because my oldest daughter, she's in high school. She have something at her school that's called the core, which is where students could go to as a secondary way of communicating and discussing their feelings and emotions, and, like, you know, minor to major conflicts that they are going through. Is there something like that that's also offered, or is it going straight to a staff member? Because I do know some students do not feel comfortable talking to staff members because they might be looked at a certain way or just be judged, a certain way. So is there something that established to where the students feel more comfortable coming to a particular type of staff member, or just a group or team members that's provided for the children, to where they can come to and like, hey, this substitute teacher is not doing X, Y, and Z, or I'm feeling uncomfortable, to where they could express themselves more freely, and the staff member could understand a little bit more, compared to a staff member saying, hey, this is what we got to do, X, Y, and Z. You have to follow the rules and instructions. So if you're not doing what you're supposed to do, this is what's going on. Instead of more so of guiding and more structuring of the child emotions and their behavior, to where you understanding why they're acting the way they are acting, and you are more so of sculpting to make them better, to where if they frustrate because, let's say, a substitute teacher is not understanding or seeing their point of view of certain things, not say all students are right, not saying all teachers are correct, and they needed someone else to step in, because with them being children, their voice is not as big as an adult voice. Is there something to a program or something that we could look into, to where students could go to a third party to discuss it, and that third party could go to like a staff member, a meeting, to where they could be like, hey, we had several complaints from a student point of view, not a parent or a teacher, but a student point of view, that, hey, this particular teacher is doing X, Y, and Z. So maybe, something could be, adjusted in that era. Because I do notice and have noticed throughout the time frame, because I do have she's ninth grade. A ninth grader that's in high school, and I have noticed within the time frame of dealing with her that there is gray areas where kids is like, mom or dad, this teacher or this substitute teacher, and when I go to this person, they're not doing nothing about it, because they're automatically standing on the teacher. And is there someone who's standing in a gray area who is open to listen to the students, and also listening to the teacher, to figure out how can they balance everything, so the numbers could go down in the suspension level and go down in the I guess in school suspension, to where students want to come to school, students want to be present, and not feel like, oh, if I say something, they're not going to believe me because I'm a student.
Okay. So yes, ma'am. Good question. So one of the first things that we do whenever there is a situation, as administrators, if a child, so a couple things, we have support on every floor. So we have a floor captain on every floor. We have a behavior specialist on every floor. We have an assistant principal on every floor, and we have a counselor on every floor. In addition to teachers, right? So a part of why the numbers have decreased is if a child is having a moment in class and they just need a reset, one of those individuals is able to support them. And the other thing that I wanted to say to you is with any investigation or any incident, we have to get statements. So if a child is accusing, or a teacher is writing a child up for something, we get the child statement, we get the teacher statement. We have to get everyone's statement before we go and we suspend. So this is a process. It's not just your word against that word, right? A lot of times we spend some of our day looking at video, right? That's the good thing about us having cameras throughout the building, so that we can look and see, okay, these scholars were involved in this situation or they were not involved in this situation. Another thing that we have is the Student Government Association. It has not gotten started this year. We do have one, but we can write that down, team, as getting that student government and that student voice going again. And then another thing that we have in place, Mom, is the BAS 3 BEST assessment. Our scholars were just assessed on this, and basically that is a test to see which scholars need support emotionally, which scholars are at risk for maybe self-harm and things of that sort. So basically the children are taking a test and answering questions about themselves. And so we get a report as a school, And then we come together with the counselors, the administrators, and say, this child is high risk for this. And so then what the counselors do is they bring those students in, they have a one-on-one conference with them to kind of dig a little bit deeper. And then in addition to that, one of our supports, we have a wraparound services support. So we have mental health. We partner with Family Ties, Hazel Health. So we do offer mental health services here. So if we see a child that needs that, it's simply we get Miss Miller or one of our counselors reaches out to the parent, they get permission, and then the ball starts rolling from there. We also have communities and schools. So we have a lot of sources to pour into our scholars here. So when we see, you know, you can see sometime a scholar that's having issues. So that's the importance of that weekly whole child and intervention team, so that we're looking at attendance, we're looking at grades, we're looking at behaviors every single week and having that caseload. And of course, we add scholars as needed, we exit scholars as well. So yes, ma'am, you brought up a good point. And I'm thinking that SGA would be also a good place for us to go ahead and get that going so we can hear that student voice.
Okay, another question / statement. I do know when I was growing up, I'm from Jersey, so school and education was kind of different than down south. But I do know up north, they was requiring for each for all level counselors to actually meet with students once a month, or, you know, however the school had it scheduled, to where you actually not force the student, but force the student, because you have some kids that's afraid to come and speak. So with you implementing more of, hey, today is your day to come, or a counselor just go and just randomly pick some students for that particular month they want to just meet with, and just ask them, hey, how's school going? How's grade? How is home? You know, X, Y, and Z, to figure out the level and actually the mental state of children, other than them coming to you. Because some kids are afraid to come to teachers, because they feel like only reason why you should come to teachers or staff members if there's something major happen. And we need to make sure we catch it at a minor state and not wait until it gets to somewhere major, to where it's like it becomes something extremely big. So is there something like that that's going to be implanted, or we could try to plan for something like that, to where there is time, or since each level of students in each grade have their own dean and own counselor, is there ways to where we could actually make a time frame to where each counselor make time for their students to say, hey, I want to call so-and-so to the office, and they have maybe a 15-minute time frame to where the counselor could actually pick the brains of the student to see the mental level of it. Because there is some kids could say, I'm perfectly fine, and come to find out they was never fine. So is there something like in plant, or something we could schedule or plan to add into the school, like no later than next year, to where kids could actually be forced to explain their emotions and mental level, and not wait until they're ready to explode, to where we can control the explosion and not let them explode, but, you know, guide them on their emotions, how they feel, how to deal with life growing up and things in that matter. Because I do my research on school shootings and stuff like that, and I have noticed that's something that's really missing compared to when I was growing up in the 90s, to where my counselor would come, you know, pull kids out the classroom just to have a small discussion, just to see where they're at, study the children, to see there's a different outside of just the teacher. You know, hey, I noticed, you know, Bobby is not, you know, interacting with kids, and normally he do interacting with kids, and come to find out Tommy is bothering Bobby, but because Tommy is not showing, you know, different type of behavior, you can't see that there's a problem going on, because Bobby don't want to explain to the counselor what's going on, because he just don't want to go and talk. You know, is there something that's like, is there something, and is there a way that we could establish or start something to where it's like almost a forced counseling, but not a forced counseling, where you come in, speak to the counselor, you could just say whatever you want to say, the counselor could kind of read you and could say, hey, you know what, I kind of noticed that Bobby was a little bit off today, so let's see what his real problem is, even though he's saying he's okay today, but I kind of could tell compared to all our other meetings how he was interacting with us. Like, is that something that's also available to the children, or we could add into, you know, with this in school, out of school suspension as a second step to keep the kids from getting suspended? Because I know some things are homebound, and because it's homebound, as us parents, you know, we don't want our kids to over explain stuff what's going at home because they don't understand. But us as parents as well, some do not take the time out to actually understand and get our children point of view. And then you have stubborn kids that don't want to tell you why they angry today. But if there's a way to where we could find someone who could watch or monitor them and be like, hey, today Tommy was mad Monday through Friday for almost a whole month, we might need to, you know, go a little bit further deep in on why they were so angry throughout this whole month. So is there a way we can more micromanage the children so the numbers of out of school suspension could keep on decreasing?
That's a good suggestion. We will definitely write that down. And you know, we do have a counselor, Ms. Ellis, one of our team members is one of the counselors, so we can write that down. Ms. Haddock?
I was gonna say two things, Ms. Giles, and it's interesting that you said Second Step. Second Step is a platform that we use, and I hear you say counselors, but actually the teachers have more time one-on-one with the students because they're in the classrooms. So we do have our SEL lessons that are taught every Friday that the students participate in, and they are for the reason that you're exemplifying, and it's teaching the students strategies on how to rechannel their emotions, how to handle when things have not gone well. In those lessons, we identify, we have the students write down at least 5 people in the building that they feel comfortable going to. So it has been addressed. The other thing is now, not necessarily that they've been assigned, but there is someone in this building out of 100+ employees that each of the students are comfortable enough with that kind of could mentor, if you would. We work together in teams on each of the grade levels in the departments, wherein if I've got a student that may be having a bad day, or that may just not be feeling Ms. Haddock today, that may feel comfortable going to another staff member across the hall, we do that to make sure that we are supporting that child in that way. So there are measures or strategies that we're using, or techniques that are taking place in the building that addresses that.
Also, if I can add, in addition to what Ms. Haddock said, as the counselor, I have a Google Classroom. I'm a 6th grade counselor. I was Symphony's counselor last year. I have a Google Classroom where the students go in, they've joined my Google Classroom. I do a needs assessment at the beginning of the school year so I can see what their concerns are. And I have a form where they can do, they submit the information and they tell me why they need to talk to me. And then I go and I meet with the students and we talk about this situation. Some of them might say it's a big problem. It's very important. So those are the ones that I tackle first. And then some might say, hey, I just want to check in, or I just want to talk to you about something. And so I pull those students to find out how they're doing. So that's also some additional supports that we have, even as the counselors.
Okay, another question. As you know, a counselor, do you have someone to assist you with also counseling? Because I know it could be extremely hectic because it's a lot of students and it's a high number of students that have to come to you between 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. Do you have like someone to back you up if you're particularly busy? So let's say you are talking to Bobby about something because he said it's major, and then some Toya comes and say, hey, I need to talk to her right now because I'm having like emotional or some type of conflict. Is there someone secondary from you or any other counselor to help control the situation that's also a counselor or a staff member or someone who's more of more have a psychology degree in dealing with children who's at a dramatic step in their situation? Because some kids might be like, I'm so angry because she stole my pencil. And then you might have some kids like, hey, I keep getting picked on a bus, and now it's becoming something major. But instead of them telling you like, hey, I'm being picked on, or someone stole my pencil, they just saying, hey, I need to talk and it's important. Is there someone else to back you up when you are tied with another student?
We have four counselors. We have four counselors. We have a social emotional learning coach. We also have a social worker, and
Behavior specialist.
we have our behavior specialist, and we have actually the faculty and staff. We all support each other,
AP.
and we all support the students. So we deal with the situations as they come. Fortunately enough for us, we haven't had situations where it was just so bogged down that we couldn't handle it. So as the situations arise, we deal with the situation. So we have a lot of support with our wraparound services, even like Ms. Davis. Even like Ms. Davis said, we also have communities and schools. So we have a lot of support to support the students.
Okay, that's awesome to know. That was just one of my concerns. With also me dealing with children who have behavior problems with other teachers and other staff members. That was one of my concerns, because when I did work in a early childhood education center, I did have several different students that with other teachers, they was really bad with with those particular teachers, but because I kind of dealt with them different, they was able to talk to me to the point where the parents was able to see a difference in their children behavior. I just want to make sure there's a secondary option for children to where, they could also express their needs, and their needs is also, addressed it properly.
Okay, thank you, team. Okay, so we will move forward. Thank you for that conversation. All right, team. So now let's go into our strategic plan. Next slide, please. Okay, so here's our strategic plan that we have. And so what we need to do as a team is to decide how we want to rank our priorities. So I've given you guys an overview of where we are as far as all of our SMART goals that you see above. And so now we just need to see where we want to rank our priorities as a school, if we need to change anything. So that's the discussion that we want to go into now. I wonder, so I'll lift this. So our first priority is to improve students' mastery of core content knowledge. This is ELA, math, science, and social studies. So this is the first priority that was ranked last year. The second is to close the student achievement gap with general education students and students with disabilities. Again, remember, we are definitely monitoring this subgroup in our SIP and our STAT. And then the third is to implement STEAM enriched curriculum to drive interdisciplinary and project-based teaching and learning approaches. And then the fourth priority is to prepare our students to have the essential life skills to be self-aware, collaborative, and accepting of diversity. The fifth is creating a culture of high expectations for academic scholarship, civic responsibility, and service for students, staff, and families. The sixth priority is to prepare and develop knowledgeable staff focused on quality teaching. The seventh is to build teacher capacity in core content areas. The eighth is to recommend high quality staff for vacant positions. Number 9 is to ensure systems and resources are aligned to school priorities. And then number 10 is to build systems and resources to support STEAM implementation. So we'll leave it on this slide so that we can discuss, and the floor is open. Do you guys feel like this is the right order, or do we need to shift some things around?
I think it should be.
I am kind of, and I would love to hear your feedback, guys, because I'm just I would love to see the building a culture of student support move up a notch. I think that especially with Atlanta Public Schools, with this whole child initiative and understanding what that looks like as far as reaching the child, and we have, in order to be able to teach them, we have to be able to reach them. And so you share your feedback. I'm just thinking maybe we need to bump that one up. What do you all think?
I agree with you, Ms. Hattie. I was thinking the same thing. I think building a culture, I think that should be moved up because I do agree, because this covers everyone,
Yes.
faculty, staff, students, families. I think that should be up a notch because like you said, we have to be able to reach the students, each other, everyone, before we can actually teach them.
Teach.
I agree.
Okay.
So, so number 5, you saying number 5 should be up near the top 3, or?
Well, the way I was
Cause
looking
I
at it,
noticed, cause
go
I
ahead.
see for number 1, it say improve student mastery of core content knowledge. So you all are saying in order for us to make sure we can provide that content knowledge, we have to be able to reach the students,
Yes.
right?
Yes, so the number 1 through 4, and correct me if I'm wrong, 1 through 4 attaches itself to fostering academic excellence for all.
Yes,
Number 5 aligns with building a culture of student support.
yes.
So if we build the culture of student support, including like getting
Everything else will fall in place.
right,
Yeah,
everything
okay.
else will fall. So we can bump,
Hopefully it will. That's how we're looking at it. Okay.
yes. So bump 2 up to 1, 1 down to 2, and leave 3 and 4 in the same place?
So
Yes.
blue, gray, brown, yellow.
Yes.
Blue, gray, brown, yellow. I mean, they were just easier for me to look at the colors.
And so thirdly, after we build the culture of student support, foster academic excellence, then we can equip and empower leaders and staff. And then
How do you feel where it's being blue, brown, then gray? Because if you could build a culture and support students, you'd be able to equip and empower the staff to build the students to be able to fostering academic excellence for all.
Okay, so what's that? What's your color again? You said the blue,
brown, gray, yellow.
Yes.
blue, brown.
Because I feel like if you could find a foundation to build a culture, you could be able to, from the building of the culture, you'd be able to equip the needs to empower the staff to understand what they need to do to be able to perform properly. So the school system to support, what's going on in the school system. I said that totally backwards, but yes. So building a culture, student support, equipping and empowering leaders and staff, fostering economics and excellence for all, which could create a system of school support.
So essentially setting the expectations by building a culture of support,
Mm-hmm.
putting the right people in place,
Yes.
rolling out the academic, the master, the excellence, setting
Yes.
the curriculum and building out, and then creating a school system or school support.
Yes.
Feedback, what do we think? What do we think? Ms. McClendon, you've been quiet. Mr. Cogdell? Ms. Ellis, Ms. Gabel, I mean, not Ms. Gabel, Ms. Triplett? What do you all think about that? Blue, brown, gray, yellow?
Blue. I'm still looking. Blue.
I agree
brown.
with blue, brown, gray, yellow.
Yeah, okay.
Blue,
brown.
gray.
I could see it working.
Okay, yeah, I can see that because in order for us to equip the students, you have to have
The right people in place.
the equipment and the empowering the leaders and the staff. I guess I can look at it either way. I can do the blue, gray, brown, yellow, or the blue, brown, gray, yellow. I mean, I can look at both because I'm thinking the fact that when you're hiring, you hoping you're getting those qualified educators as they come in. So I guess you can look at it several different ways.
Mhm.
I don't know. So hopefully they're already equipped when you're hiring them to come into your.
Because number
And-
one for Grace says to improve students' mastery of core content knowledge. That's number one. We have to improve the mastery. So in order to do that,
You have to have qualified.
yes.
So basically what you're doing is you're gonna force people who already is qualified to step up to the position and not have to weave through the people who are qualified.
That's the way it
So-
should. Yes, yes. You have the qualified individuals here, but like you're saying, you got to put something in place in order for those educators to step up to the plate in order to reach, the student as far as the mastery and the content knowledge.
And so that's number 7, right? Build teacher capacity.
You got to have, you have to have a plan in place.
So as far as the ranking,
So-
do we agree then that we're gonna go with blue, brown, gray, and yellow?
Or the blue, the gray. Yeah, okay, you say blue, brown, gray, yellow. Okay, yeah.
Because initially it was blue, gray, brown, yellow,
Blue,
but
blue,
to
gray, brown.
Ms.
Yes.
Giles' point, blue, brown, gray, and yellow.
Okay. Blue, brown.
I'm good with
okay,
that.
Gray
Good.
and yellow. Okay.
Okay, team. So we
Okay.
landed on blue, brown, gray, and yellow, right?
Yes, so in number 1, we're building a culture of student support.
Mhm.
Number 2, equipping and empowering leaders and staff. 3, fostering academic excellence for all. And 4, creating a system of school support.
Academic excellence. Okay. Okay.
Ms. Davis,
Yes,
That's it.
ma'am.
Okay.
Yes.
you okay with that?
I listen, I'm for what the team wants. Listen, I love it. Yes. And so team, what'll happen is this is information that I'll use, right, when it comes down to when we have that budget conference and
Mhm.
aligning our resources, right? So we're shifting things around. And of course, all of that, the plan, everything will come before you for approval before we do anything. So yes, so that's the importance of this right here. So yes, we're good. Thank you. Okay, so now hold up. We have to take action, team.
Yes.
So the Go team, is that me or you, Miss Triplett?
No, that's fine. Go ahead. Go ahead. We
Okay,
just have to make sure we vote. Yeah, vote on it.
Yes, ma'am. The Go team needs to take action on its ranked strategic plan priorities. Okay, so do I have a motion to
Motion.
accept the strategic plan priorities?
I motion.
I
Yes.
motion
Okay.
to
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I second it.
second.
Okay, thank you, team. So we now have agreed to accept the ranking of our strategic plan priorities. Okay, so we did a vote. Oh, my bad. I didn't say something right. Okay, so all in favor say aye.
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 Okay, all opposed say nay. Any abstentions? Okay, thank you so much, team. Okay, thank you. Okay, Ms. Gabel, can you go forward a couple of slides for me? Keep going to where we're going. Okay, we did that. Keep going. We did that. Okay. All right, team. So at our next meeting, we will begin the discussion about the 24-25 budget. And let me or Ms. Triplett know of any additional information that you need for our future discussion. Okay, next slide for me, please. Okay, so now we're gonna get into my report. And then I'll give an overview of the cluster advisory team discussion that we had. Next slide, please. Okay, next slide. So next slide for me. Okay, so I am super duper proud, and I know we all are, that our JLIA Royal Lion football team won the playoff game against Sylvan Hills Middle School last Saturday with a score of 48-0. Our team have done a phenomenal job all season, being diligent. They are truly scholar athletes, and I mean academics is always first. Team, and so we are truly amazed and happy for our team and our coaches to be playing this Saturday at 11:30 a.m. against Sutton Middle School. So we are now in the semifinals, and so it'll take place at Lakewood Stadium. So if you can come out and support our team to a victory. We are having a pep rally on this Friday to pep up our team. So if you want to come out and celebrate with us, feel free. The pep rally will start at 3 p.m. Next slide for me.
Ms. Davis, what time is the game on Saturday?
At
Lakewood?
At 11:30 a.m.
11:30, okay.
And then our JLIA Royal Lion cheerleaders, y'all, they won first place in the first district cheer competition. Our girls did an amazing job. You see them, you see their coaches on the screen. We are super duper proud of our scholar athletes again. And once again, this was the first district cheer competition that has taken place in years. So we are extremely proud of our young ladies. Okay. And before I go to the next slide, well, I can go to the next slide. We'll talk about our Invictus Fall Festival. We are so excited. Ms. Gabelle, Ms. Miller, Ms. Blackwood, Ms. Ellis, the entire team, everyone who is on the committee and preparing for our second annual Invictus Fall Festival. It's going to be this Thursday. Festivities start at 5:30 p.m. We're going to have a haunted hallway, trunk or treating, food, games, and prizes. So please invite everyone to come out and have a great time. And so I'll just give a brief update of our cluster advisory team meeting that we had last week. So basically, I had to go in and I just talked about the updates that we had as a school. And one of the updates that I provided, of course, was last week. Around this time, we were going into our playoff game. So I announced that as well. And I told them about our upcoming Invictus Fall Festival. And then just as a cluster, what we are working on, our priorities, we are continuing to work on that tier 1 instruction, that observation and that coaching piece. So we're continuing to work on those initiatives that we started last year, and we're continuing on to work on that this year. And so for our meeting in December, I have to bring an update with data, of course, supporting where we are in achieving our goals on the SIP. So similar to what we're doing in this meeting, I will have to do that for that team and that meeting in December. Okay. Next slide. So I know this is a meeting for public comment. Ms. Triplett, if you have anything, I don't have the language for that, my love. So how much time do we allow for public comment?
Do we have any public comments? No.
We don't have any public comment. Okay, so we don't have any public comment. Okay. I know it was a live, it was a Zoom. Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Okay, team. Okay. Well, Ms. Triplett, I turn it back over to you.
Okay, so, Miss, okay, no, Miss, let's say no. Okay, so cool. So are we adjourning? Are you finished with everything, Ms. Davis?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
yes, ma'am.
Cool. Somebody said, yep, thank you. Okay, so now we have reached the end of our agenda. Is there any additional business at this time? Any additional business at this time? May I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I do want to add that the Zoom user was Jasmine Henderson. She put in the chat that she wasn't able to respond because she was driving.
Oh, the
So
Zoom.
the Zoom user was
Oh,
Jasmine, so she's been on the meeting, she just couldn't respond. She put it in the chat.
I'll update the attendance to show her presence.
okay, so the additional member was Jasmine Henderson, okay. Okay. Zoom participant, okay. Okay, awesome. Thank you, ma'am. Now, may I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I motion to adjourn.
A second?
Second,
All in favor, please raise your hand.
Aye.
All opposed, please raise your hand. Any abstentions, please raise your hand. All righty, we have no additional information. The meeting is adjourned. Y'all have a wonderful night.
Thank you. Thank you, team. Good evening.
Y'all have a good
Bye,
evening.
everybody.
All right, have a great one.